Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Steffi. Today I actually wanted to talk about a secret. The reason why I call it a secret is because I wish I was aware about this when I first came to Australia. You know, in 2012 when I came to Australia, I came with a 457 visa, which is a work permit, and I had a telephone interview, and at the time of the interview I was in India. So I was able to answer the questions and I got the job. Came here, I work in a nursing home or a residential aged care facility, and I absolutely loved that experience because that system was something that we don't have in India. And it was fascinating for me to learn the new system, how it all come together, how it all works basically, and I really enjoyed that. But at one stage, I started thinking, hang on a minute, I'm not really using my clinical skills. When I wanted to move on from working in a nursing home to starting to apply for the public system, the public hospitals, I would never even get an interview, the first 3 or 4. And I used to always wonder why. I couldn't understand why I didn't even get an interview. I thought to myself, if I get the chance to at least give an interview, that's 50% of the work done, because the first thing in your job application is to score an interview. And what do I need to do that? So I started working on that, and I started asking people. So what I did was I spoke to one of my manager at the nursing home. I said I would really like to work in the hospital system and start building on my clinical skills, or at least I don't want to lose my clinical skills that I have gained from my previous experiences. And she was very, very supportive. I'm so grateful for that help that I got from her. And really, once I got into the public system, there is no looking back. I worked in different roles. I really enjoyed it. And you get so many career opportunities, career choices that you can take. Coming back to our point, how do you score an interview? So the way the job application system works here in Australia is absolutely and completely different from India. In India, for any competitive exam, you sit an exam which is like a little bit based on your profession, your current affairs and whatnot. But here it's very different. So when you apply for jobs in Australia, these are some of the most common things that you are asked to answer. And they're called selection criteria. And I've never ever learn how to address selection criteria in my life before, so I was just absolutely dumbfounded as to how do I demonstrate how I communicate. It sounds funny now, but when I start applying for jobs and where the selection criteria would say things like demonstrate your communication skills or demonstrate interpersonal skills, anytime it says communication skills, I thought to myself, well, how do I demonstrate my communication skills? If I can't speak English, how can I be working in an Australian setup? But that's not what they want to know. And funny enough, I used to write, I scored, 8 band in IELTS exam. So what's funny was I thought my IELTS was so important to demonstrate my communication skills that I decided to write it in my selection criteria. I don't think the recruiter cared at all how much I scored in my IELTS. Little did I know that what they're actually looking for is the minute little detail of how you communicate with people. So I'll give you an example. To address this selection criteria number 1, demonstrate your communication skills. So you need to show and demonstrate to your potential employer that you can communicate in writing, you can communicate verbally. An example of how you demonstrate is you can say, I communicate at work all the time with my colleagues through, clinical handover. That's a very important tool for communication. I communicate with the doctors by making a phone call, communicating what the patient's concerns are or the family's concerns are. So that is how you demonstrate your verbal communication skills. Demonstrate your writing skills. You say, I demonstrate my writing skills or writing abilities by documentation. I write the progress notes, I complete the charts, I complete incident reports. So all of those put together are a way in which you can demonstrate your communication skills. Now, I really wish that someone would have told me this before. I mean, even if you're not here in Australia and you're in India and someday you're looking to make a transition from India to going to some other countries, these are some of the things that you need to be aware of, especially if you're new in Australia and you're looking for a job. It's very important not only to do the market research or the employment opportunities, but actually having the information to get that invitation for interview. That is the first step to securing your job in Australia. And another example that I want to give is there's always a question about your organizational skills or time management skills. So when we talk about organizational skills, is how organized are you as a person, as a professional in your workplace? How much organizational skills do you have to be able to fulfill the requirement of that position? So as we said before, in our selection criteria number 2, if it's asking for your organizational skills, some of the examples that you can give are, you can say, I'm a very well organized person. I organize my work from at the start of my day. I have a to-do list where I write down all the tasks that I have to complete for the day, and I check them or tick them as I complete the task. That's a good example of demonstrating or showing off your organizational skills, right? Another way of demonstrating your organizational skills is you can say that you're good at multitasking, especially if you're looking for a job in a clinical settings. It can be very, very busy. So having the skills and the ability to multitask is a great skill to possess. That's another example of how you can demonstrate your organizational skills, when you're asked to talk about or to write about your organizational skills. And the third selection criteria we'll cover today is time management skills. So working in a busy environment and having the ability to manage your time efficiently is very, very important, especially if you're working in a rotating shift or in a place where you've got to hand over to other people. Nobody likes to come into work and get handed over a bunch of work and tasks that are not completed. Your colleagues aren't going to be very happy. If you want to be able to shine in your role and get along with your colleagues and have a good reputation in your workplace, time management is of the utmost importance here. Because how would you like if you come to me for handover and I gave you a bunch of stuff that I haven't finished, I haven't been able to finish documentation, I haven't been able to do the incident report, can you do it for me? Well, you know what, if I handed you all these tasks, I don't think you'll be very happy, because then what will that cause is it will cause you to delay doing other things that you're supposed to be doing in your own shift. So time management skills is very, very important. So how can you demonstrate your ability to manage your time efficiently and effectively? Again, much like organizational skills, you can say, for example, I complete my tasks on time. I don't leave things to do later. As what we said in the organizational skills, you can say, I list down all my tasks according to their priority. And I keep track of the time. When I'm asked to write a report, I presented it before the deadline. I make sure that the report is ready before deadline so that there is enough time for me to review. So guys, the most important thing to remember when you address the selection criteria is to give an example. You can give an example of anything that happened in your life before or that you have gone through where you use your time management skills, where you use your communication skills, where you use your organizational skills. The next selection criteria we're going to look at is about interpersonal skills. When we talk about addressing selection criteria for, interpersonal skills, you can again talk about, I speak nicely to people. I respect other people. I listen to what they have to say to me. So when it comes to addressing interpersonal skills, an example of how you can demonstrate an interpersonal skills is you can say, when communicating with others, I pay attention to them. I show that I am attentive to what they say. I ask questions when I'm not sure about things. You can say I respect other people's opinion and I get along well with other people. So that's the way you can demonstrate your interpersonal skills. So I'd like to mention one more thing here. Sometimes the selection criteria for interpersonal skills and conflict management might be combined in the one selection criteria, or sometimes they will put it in separate selection criteria. Either way, you can elaborate more on your interpersonal skills, how you communicate with people, what helps you get along with other people, things of that nature. If you're required to address the selection criteria based on your conflict management skills, then you can say things like, when I have a difference in opinion with my colleague, I don't speak to them in a loud and aggressive manner. I speak to them calmly, and I make sure that I take the conversation away from the public or away from the patients or away from relatives into a private area where we can have a discussion quietly. That's a very good way to manage conflict. Another example of how you can demonstrate or what you can say in your selection criteria for conflict management is, you can give an example of, in my previous role, wherever you work, I had a situation where I felt like one of my colleagues was not respectable to me. I was not comfortable with the way that he or she was talking. So in order to manage and solve that conflict, I politely asked them if I could talk to them, if I could have a chat about it, and I expressed how I feel in a non-confrontational manner so that they don't feel threatened. And in that way, we were able to resolve the conflict. And it turns out that I was just being oversensitive or whatever. So that's a good way to resolve conflict in the workplace. Conflict management in the workplace is very, very important, because in every workplace there are different personalities that come to work together, and you know what? Some personality just clash. So how do you avoid that in the professional arena? Because if you ended up in a conflict with someone, you don't really want to put a black mark over your head for being the problem child or the troublemaker or whatever. So guys, these are the 4 selection criteria that I wanted to share with you, that you might already know about it, you might not be aware about it, but I thought I would share it from my own experience. Regardless of any job that you apply for, all the 4 selection criteria that we've talked about today are applicable, regardless of whether you're a nurse or you work in retail, you work in IT, whatever it is. You need to have your time management skills. You need to be able to communicate. You need to have an organizational skills to be able to prioritize your work. And you need to have a good interpersonal skills so that you're not fighting with everybody. So that you get along with people, so that your work life is harmonious.